Man's greatest mistake has always been his blindness toward appearances. What the eyes see, the heart quickly accepts, and what the heart accepts, the mind rarely questions. Yet I, Machiavelli, tell you this: truth is never what is shown on the surface. Truth is always hidden behind a veil. And it is in this art of veiling that a woman's greatest power rests. Innocence, yes, innocence. The mask of purity that blinds judgment and weakens reason. When a woman stands before you, she does not simply stand as herself. She crafts a portrait. She paints her face with calm, with gentleness, with purity so complete that suspicion itself feels like a sin. You look into her eyes and believe them to be mirrors of honesty, and you see her smile as a symbol of loyalty. But what you call a mirror, I call a mask. And behind this mask lies calculation, strategy, and wisdom sharp enough to bring down the mightiest of men. Remember this: a powerful enemy rarely strikes you with open force. A wise enemy cloaks his weapons, strikes from the shadows, and leaves you unaware until it is too late. A woman who understands this truth does not need armies, nor soldiers, nor blades. She needs only the illusion of innocence, for that illusion will disarm you faster than any sword. Her soft tone, her silent patience, her delicate glance, these are not truths, they are tactics. And the man who confuses tactics for truth has already lost the war before it begins. In the courts of princes and the halls of kings, I have seen this art at work more than once. Men of power who once commanded nations fell not because of their enemies outside the gates, but because of those they trusted within their chambers. They believed in innocence, in loyalty, in the purity of heart, and that belief was their undoing. Understand this clearly. The most dangerous chains are not made of iron, they are woven with trust. And when you mistake innocence for loyalty, you place those chains on your own wrists. Consider how easily men are conquered by softness. A gentle word, a compassionate gesture, a single tear shed at the right moment. These become weapons sharper than daggers. You may laugh at such things, but history itself laughs at those who dismiss them. For kingdoms have been lost not by armies storming the walls, but by a smile that softened the mind of a king, or by a whisper that planted doubt in the heart of a ruler. You call it love, you call it faith, you call it innocence. I call it strategy, and strategy always outlives passion. The danger of innocence is not only in what it shows, but in what it hides. When you see purity, you lower your guard. When you believe loyalty, you silence suspicion. And when suspicion is silent, betrayal becomes inevitable. Men often think themselves clever when they defeat an army or conquer a rival. But what man is truly clever when he cannot guard his heart against the illusion of innocence? What good is it to build fortresses of stone if the gates of your soul are wide open to anyone who knocks with a sweet smile? Do not think I speak of malice alone. No, sometimes the woman herself may not even see her actions as dangerous, for nature itself has armed her with the instinct to survive through subtlety. Where men push with strength, women pull with perception. Where men threaten, women persuade. Where men shout, women whisper, and it is in the whisper where true power lives. Innocence is the armor she wears, and you, blind in your desire, become the willing captive. The fox survives not because it is stronger than the lion, but because it appears harmless until the moment of attack. Likewise, a woman's strength does not lie in brute force, but in the careful shaping of what you see and what you do not. And when you look only at what is shown, you remain forever blind to what is hidden. This is the danger of innocence. It is not weakness. It is not vulnerability. It is the sharpest disguise of power itself. And yet, men refuse to learn. They fall again and again into the same trap, believing that purity is truth and that gentleness cannot deceive. They hold to their illusions like a drowning man clings to driftwood, never realizing that the very thing they trust will pull them beneath the water. But a ruler, a thinker, a man who desires power must see beyond the veil. He must ask not what is shown, but why it is shown. He must ask not what is spoken, but what is left unspoken. For innocence is a story told to disarm you, and only the wise ask who is holding the pen. Power has always worn many masks. Some rule with armies, some with wealth, some with fear. But there exists a form of power so subtle, so invisible, that it can enslave the strongest of men without him even realizing it. This is not the power of weapons, nor the power of crowns, but the power of emotion. And it is here, in this hidden battlefield, that women have long mastered their craft. A man believes himself strong when he commands soldiers, when he raises his voice, when he strikes fear into the hearts of others. He believes force is the ultimate tool of control, but force is loud and its effects are temporary. Emotion, however, whispers. Emotion slides into the cracks of the human spirit, shaping choices and bending will without resistance. And while men fight battles with steel, women conquer empires with feelings. You must understand that emotion is not weakness, as many men foolishly believe. Emotion is a weapon. It does not kill the body. It captures the mind. And once the mind is captured, the body follows willingly. A tear shed at the right moment can move a man more than 100 soldiers charging at him. A smile given in his darkest hour can bind him with loyalty stronger than chains. A sigh of sadness can turn his anger into guilt, his strength into submission. And this is not chance. This is not accident. It is strategy. Where men build fortresses with stone, women build fortresses with care, with attention, with intimacy. They weave webs not of iron but of words, gestures, glances that seem small but carry the weight of 1,000 promises. A man who once thought himself invincible finds himself kneeling, not because he was forced, but because he was led. And the cruelest truth is this: he does not even realize it is happening. He calls it love. He calls it connection. He calls it trust. Yet in reality, it is influence, the most potent form of domination. History itself is littered with men undone by emotion. Kings who surrendered their thrones, warriors who abandoned their causes, rulers who risked entire kingdoms, all because they gave their hearts where their heads should have ruled. It was not armies that defeated them, nor swords that cut them down, but the invisible hand of emotion. This is why Machiavelli warns that a wise man must never underestimate the battlefield of the heart. For the heart is the gate to the mind, and once that gate is open, reason is powerless. Think of the way emotion bends logic. A man may know, in his mind, what is best for him. He may know that caution is wiser than trust, that restraint is safer than surrender. Yet when emotions are stirred, logic becomes a whisper drowned out by the storm within. This is the power women often wield, not by brute force, but by igniting storms within the men who trust them. And what is more dangerous than an enemy who can turn your own mind against you? Do not be fooled by the idea that this weapon is always wielded consciously. Sometimes it is instinct. Sometimes it is a natural gift. But whether intentional or not, the effect remains the same. Emotion blinds. And blindness in politics, in power, in life, is death. The general who lets his feelings guide him loses battles. The ruler, or who lets his heart govern him, loses his throne. The man who allows emotion to overrule reason becomes a servant in his own house. Observe carefully. When a woman comforts, when she soothes. I have seen leaders undone not by armies, but by their inability to see through this. They thought themselves immune to manipulation because they were strong, because they were powerful, because they ruled with authority. But what is authority when your decisions are no longer your own? What is power when your will has been bent by another's smile, another's tears, another's voice? A ruler who cannot master emotion will always be mastered by it. And that is why I tell you, with no hesitation, that emotion is the sharpest weapon. It does not wound the flesh. It rewrites the mind. It does not leave scars on the body. It leaves chains on the soul. And the one who knows how to wield it commands a form of power far greater than fear, far greater than wealth, far greater than strength. For strength may be resisted, but emotion is welcomed. It enters willingly, and once it enters, it never leaves untouched. I have seen leaders undone not by armies, but by their inability to see through this. They thought themselves immune to manipulation because they were strong, because they were powerful, because they ruled with authority. But what is authority when your decisions are no longer your own? What is power when your will has been bent by another's smile, another's tears, another's voice? A ruler who cannot master emotion will always be mastered by it. And that is why I tell you, with no hesitation, that emotion is the sharpest weapon. It does not wound the flesh. It rewrites the mind. It does not leave scars on the body. It leaves chains on the soul. And the one who knows how to wield it commands a form of power far greater than fear, far greater than wealth, far greater than strength. For strength may be resisted, but emotion is welcomed. It enters willingly, and once it enters, it never leaves untouched. Betrayal has always been the sharpest dagger in the story of mankind. Armies may clash, fortresses may fall, kingdoms may collapse, but rarely do these happen without betrayal whispering in the background. You imagine the danger comes from the enemy outside your walls, the rival who raises his flag against you, the soldier who points his blade at your chest. But I tell you this, the deadliest wounds do not come from enemies. They come from the hands you held, the lips that kissed you, the voices that swore loyalty to you. Betrayal is powerful, not because it strikes, but because it strikes where trust already exists. No one can betray you unless you first give them access. This is the cruel irony. The deeper the trust, the deadlier the betrayal. A stranger can hurt you with force, but only someone close can undo you with ease. And women, because they often gain access to the heart, because they are invited into a man's secrets, into his soul, hold a position where betrayal, if it comes, becomes absolute. History tells us this lesson again and again, but men refuse to learn. Great rulers have fallen not because their armies failed, but because their hearts failed them. Consider the stories whispered in royal courts. Queens who whispered into the ears of kings, lovers who carried messages to rivals, wives who turned ambition into treachery. These betrayals were not accidents. They were strategies, executed in silence, shielded by the illusion of intimacy. And when the moment came, the dagger was not drawn in the battlefield, but in the bedroom. The politics of betrayal is more sophisticated than war, for war is declared openly, but betrayal moves in shadows. It waits patiently, feeding on your confidence, building on your blind faith, until the moment arrives where the smallest act of disloyalty delivers the greatest destruction. A single whispered word in the wrong ear, a single secret handed to the wrong hands, a single promise broken at the right time, and empires crumble. What catapults and swords could not achieve, betrayal accomplishes with a whisper. Do not imagine that betrayal always begins with hatred. Men often believe they will recognize betrayal when it comes. They imagine it will arrive with warning signs, with suspicion, with discomfort. But betrayal wears a different face. It wears the face of the familiar. It speaks the words you have always trusted. It hides in the smile you thought was your shield. And by the time you recognize it, it is no longer a threat. It is already a victory against you. The crown is gone, the power is lost, the heart is shattered. A wise man does not simply fear enemies. He fears those closest to him. For betrayal is not only an act of disloyalty, it is a political act. It reshapes the balance of power. It hands strength to one side by stealing it from another. In politics, betrayal is the currency of ambition. And when it is a woman who betrays, her betrayal often carries double the weight, for she has access not only to secrets but to emotions, not only to plans but to vulnerabilities. She does not need to storm the gates of your fortress because you have already opened the door. Consider the cruel brilliance of betrayal. It forces you to destroy yourself. A man betrayed by his own emotions will blame himself for not seeing the signs. A ruler betrayed by his confidant will question his own judgment. And in that questioning, his authority weakens. His allies scatter, his enemies gather. Betrayal is not only the act itself, it is the poison it leaves behind. Distrust, paranoia, self-doubt. These rot the foundations of power far faster than swords and fire ever could. Understand this. Betrayal is not rare. It is inevitable. Where there is ambition, where there is desire, where there is power to be gained, betrayal waits. And the cruelest form of it is when it comes wrapped in affection. That is why the wisest rulers of history kept their guards raised not against the enemies outside, but against the companions within. They knew that the hand that caresses today may be the hand that delivers poison tomorrow. They knew that the lips that whisper love may tomorrow whisper treachery to another. They knew that betrayal, once planted, does not need force. It needs only opportunity. The politics of betrayal is eternal. It has toppled kings, ruined lovers, and destroyed dynasties. It works silently, invisibly, until its moment of triumph. And it is always the same lesson. The wound from a stranger hurts less than the wound from one you trusted. And the one you trusted most is always the one who can undo you the fastest. Caution is not the language of cowards, as many naive men believe. It is the language of survival, the art of kings, and the shield of those who wish to hold power without being destroyed by it. The reckless man calls caution weakness because he has never tasted the poison of betrayal, but the wise man knows that caution is the only barrier between himself and ruin. A man who trusts blindly digs his own grave, but a man who tests, who weighs, who observes before he commits, this man builds a fortress no enemy can breach. You must learn that trust is not a gift to be given freely. It is a reward to be earned and re-earned with time. For when you hand over trust without trial, you place your kingdom, your secrets, your very soul in the hands of another. And once it leaves your possession, it may never return. A crown placed on another's head rarely finds its way back to your own. The wise ruler, therefore, never surrenders all that he has, even to those who swear eternal loyalty. He keeps a part of himself hidden, a chamber in his castle where no one else may enter. Caution is not suspicion for its own sake. It is the art of balance. It is knowing when to open the door and when to leave it closed, when to share and when to remain silent. Too much suspicion breeds paranoia, but too little suspicion breeds ruin. The man of power must walk this narrow path with steady feet, never leaning too far in either direction. For one step too far into trust, and you are betrayed. One step too far hides danger in every shadow. He walks carefully, he listens, he sniffs the air for signs. If the wolf trusted blindly, he would already be dead. And yet, the wolf does not freeze in fear. He moves forward, but with awareness. This is the essence of caution, not fear, but vigilance. The ability to see what others miss, the strength to act only when the ground is firm beneath your feet. A man who rules with caution is never surprised. He expects betrayal before it comes. He anticipates manipulation before it is attempted. He places loyalty under trial, testing it in small matters before trusting it in great ones. When others are deceived, he smiles, for he saw the game long before it was played. Caution turns deception into a mirror, reflecting the truth hidden beneath masks. And those who thought themselves clever in their schemes find themselves revealed before they even act. Do not believe that love exempts you from this law. Love is often the very stage where caution is most necessary. For in love, men give not only their wealth and secrets, but their hearts, their pride, their very identities. And when all is surrendered, what is left to protect? The cautious man loves, but he never blinds himself. He feels, but he never lets feeling rule his mind. He gives, but never without measure. He holds his own leash, refusing to hand it entirely to another. In this way, he remains master of himself, even in the sweetest of bonds. Caution requires patience, and patience is the rarest strength in men. Most men want immediate trust, immediate certainty, immediate devotion. They rush to hand over the keys of their lives to those who ask for them, and they are shocked when their castles are plundered from within. But the cautious man is not so eager. He withholds judgment. He studies patterns. He watches not what is said, but what is done. He knows that truth reveals itself not in words, but in time. And so he waits. And in his waiting, he gains the power to see what others miss. The greatest rulers in history were not the strongest, but the most cautious. They understood that enemies can be turned into allies, and allies into enemies, depending on the winds of ambition. They trusted when it was useful, and doubted when it was necessary. They gave pieces of power, but never the whole. And in this way they remained untouchable, for no one ever held their entire fate in their hands. Learn from them, for history is a graveyard filled with those who trusted too much, and a throne room filled with those who mastered caution. To live without caution is to walk blindfolded on a battlefield, believing that no arrow will ever strike you. To live with caution is to walk with eyes wide open, knowing arrows may come at any time, yet prepared to step aside before they land. This is the art of survival, The essence of strategy, the wisdom that separates rulers from fools. Caution does not guarantee victory, but it prevents certain defeat. And in a world where loyalty shifts like the wind, where love can mask ambition, where words can hide daggers, the cautious man does not merely survive, he endures. Understand, then, that your future depends not on how much you trust, but on how carefully you choose to trust. Caution is not a prison, it is freedom. Freedom from manipulation, freedom from betrayal, freedom from destruction at the hands of those who smiled while plotting your downfall. A man who trusts with caution holds his destiny firmly. A man who trusts blindly delivers his destiny to another.